Number 1. Number 2. And number 3. Three ways of dealing with a similar problem. And that problem is if our opponent is angling clockwise and to the left. And I don't mean that they're voting for Bernie Sanders and dyeing their hair purple. I mean that they're getting an angle on the left side to get to your inside if you're two orthodox fighters. Because if we're two orthodox fighters, the most common direction that you move is this way. Because it allows you to get your rear hand closer and gets you a good angle with your lead hand that is more offensive. And of course, if your opponent circles that way too, to meet them, you want to pivot, it's going to be clockwise, right? So that's why that happens. There's other reasons too, but those are the main ones. So, why do we have different ways of dealing with this? Do we need different ways? Well, not necessarily, but we do if we want to get more sophisticated. The first way, which is stepping to the side and then pivoting, is purely defensive. The reason why that is because it's faster, right? If our opponent is within 1-2 steps of hitting us, so they would only need to take and now they can hit us, or maybe, and they can hit us, we want to get out very quickly, right? And pivoting is a little slow, right? So we're going to go out laterally by taking a step or multiple steps and then pivoting to meet them at the angle, from which case we can do our offense, we can reset, or whatever. The second way to deal with this is a little bit more neutral. We can launch a defense or an offense essentially immediately. However, we need our opponent to be at a little bit further distance, right? At least 2 to 3 steps out, because if they're too close, we'll get hit, right? And that's just pivoting to meet them at the new angle, right? Of course, pivoting does give us a little distance just from virtue of doing it, but the actual motion itself takes a little time, and we don't necessarily know exactly how far to the left he's going because he might take more than 1 step, and now we have to do this again, right? So to solve both of those problems, we get here, and now we can take a big pivot, and now we're out. Whereas with this, don't have that luxury and it's slower. And this is the worst time to get hit, is when we're doing some kind of rotational momentum and one of our feet is off the ground. If we get hit, we could get hit by a little hummingbird going, and we'll get knocked down or knocked out, right? So we don't want to do that. The third and most sophisticated way is going to be if our opponent is within 1 step of us, right? And you might say, well, this is the fastest, right? Because we're going from orthodox to southpaw just by rotating our body, our ankles, our knees, our hips, and our upper body, right? So it's quick. So you might think, why don't we do this for all of them and then just get good at southpaw or retreat into orthodox from here? We could, but we want to use this as a counterpunching tool, right? This is where our opponents are within 1 step of hitting us, and we're timing their motion to actually launch some kind of defense and offense in the same motion. And that's a lot more sophisticated because it takes all these components. One, I have to switch, if I'm like in this kind of hand position that I like to do, which is like the Philly shell, I have to switch it for it to be responsible, right? I have to switch the motion of my body. And I'm probably not going to just do this. I'm probably, because I'm within 1 step of getting hit, I'm going to also duck under and come up with some kind of offense. That's where it's valuable, right? And if I'm doing all of that in one motion, I better either know it's coming or have timed it or have baited it, right? probably want to have baited this in some way, where my opponent thinks that I don't have time, but I know I have time because I know what he's going to throw. I know what he likes to throw in this position, right? You could use it as a last-ditch effort if you were good enough at doing this to come up, right? However, if you get caught like this, or you under-rotate or over-rotate, and now you're like this, there's some bad positions you can get into, right? You don't want to be here, where this knee is all the way out here. My rear foot is no longer facing the right direction for this foot, where it really should be more like over here. I mean, that's a massive difference, right? You see how tight I would be? I can break my fucking knee in half by doing that if I got clipped and I was too down to the ground. So usually that's one you want to use most advanced, right? And that's mostly a counterpunching or offensive tool, right? So going through them, we have our defensive tool. We have our neutral tool at a mid distance, right? This is at close distance because we want to make space immediately. This is where we don't need to make space immediately. So we can choose what we're going to do. And this is where they're already in the motion of, they're about to take that step to where they're either able to punch us with their long range attacks, or when they land their rear, they'll be able to hit us with close range attacks, right? So they're literally in the motion of punching when we're doing this. So it's like really like they're like this, they're showing off their telegraph or whatever, they're lifting up their leg, whatever thing we see to know that they're about to move, and we're just pop, right? That's it.